everyone, this is Puneet Sandhu, aka the Tank, and today we are going to talk about, well, I would say the most important thing God has ever created on a man, also on a woman, more so on a man, which is, you guessed it right, the biceps. So we are going to talk about the biceps, and as the word goes around in the bodybuilding world, we always say education is important, but biceps are importanter. Definitely biceps are the most important thing, and well, I would say if at all education is important, it has to be on the biceps. And today we're going to have everything you ever need to know about the biceps, and I'm sure everybody would agree upon it. अगर आपको कभी भी बचपन से कोई भी बोलता है कि मेरे को अपने मसल्स दिखाओ, तो आप क्या दिखाते हो? Honestly, you don't show muscles दिखाओ, you don't show muscles दिखाओ, you don't show muscles दिखाओ. You always show the biceps. So biceps is actually a kind of a thing that we all have in our mind. कि muscles का मतलब biceps. Even in the emoji, if you kind of type in WhatsApp, and we do you know, so many chats these days, the muscle, if you just type muscle, the biceps, elbow flexion will come into, you know, there will be an emoji of an elbow flexion happening. We relate muscles to biceps, and we relate biceps to elbow flexion. So this is the elbow joint, right? And elbow flexion flexes your biceps, and hence we have a, you know, a mountain kind of a thing popping out, which is the most, we say biceps is the cherry on the cake. Today we are going to talk about elbow flexion, and I'm going to explain you how elbow flexion happens in different kinds of palm positions. Your palm could be like this, in a supinated, what we call. Supinated ka matlab, how you grab a soup, right? So this is supination, this is neutral position, and this is pronation. So how a pronated flexion of the elbow, neutral position of the palm, flexion, and a supinated position of the palm in an elbow flexion can affect the three muscles that we have here today, and how each muscle gets influenced, and how certain muscle gets the more brunt, and some other muscle would get a lesser brunt. Also, biceps, when we say a bicep, doda, bicep is a biarticular muscle. When I say a biarticular muscle, it runs through your elbow. वो मैं अभी आपको बताऊंगा, I'll just explain you. Also through your shoulder. So biceps not only flexes your elbow, it can also flex your shoulder. This is also what bicep is doing. So now I'm going to explain you how these three things can be you know, varied, and how we can influence it in different ways of our palm positions and of the positioning of our shoulder. Whether you are here in the front of you, or you are just besides your spine, or you are at the back. So we're going to just talk about all these aspects. So when we say biceps, the anatomical word to biceps is biceps brachii. So the meaning of biceps brachii, we are not gonna go in too much of a detailing of you know, a physiotherapy kind of a thing. But मैं इतना आपको बोलूँगा, just bear with me. ये एक video you need to see, you need to have a little understanding how the muscles get inserted and where is the origin, so that इसके बाद the coming videos on, I will explain you how to train your biceps in the most optimal way. So guys, just have some patience with me. I know I don't have the crowd. I'm also a bodybuilder, hardcore one, since 30 years now, and I can understand this all seems like Hebrew and bullshit to you. But I say this is very important for you. I'm not gonna go in very much details, but just kind of, I truly am saying you need to know a little understanding of all of these things. So biceps brachii, bi means two, ceps means heads. So two heads, biceps, two heads. Brachii means, this is some ancient word, maybe Greek or something Latin. Brachii means of the arm. So two heads of the arm. It makes sense, right? So every muscle belly in our body, it has got 2 points. It originates from somewhere, right? Of course. Every muscle originates from somewhere and it gets inserted somewhere else, right? And usually it crosses the joint. So just a little thing again about the origins and insertions. Every muscle which originates from somewhere, the origin point is always a pivotal point. It never moves. But the insertion is what we move when we kind of do any sort of exercise. Any sort of exercise. Any sort of, right? So whenever we do any kind of a exercise, workout, the origin is not getting displaced, but yes, of course, how we kind of influence that muscle is, we change the insertion of it. We make it further away from the origin or we make it nearer to the origin. So as I just said, biceps has got two heads, right? Now the two heads are, one is called the longer head and one is called the shorter head. The longer head of the bicep is on the lateral side of the humerus. This is the humerus. इसको humerus कहते हैं. जो upper arm का जो ये bone है, from shoulder till here, the upper arm is called humerus. And the long head is the lateral, the outer part of the head is called the long head. And the medial part, the medial का मतलब शरीर के पास, the one which is nearer to your body is called the short head. The origination place is called supraglenoid tubercle. So this is where the origin of the biceps, both the heads are, and then both the heads get merged and they make a single big muscle belly. So they get inserted in the radial tuberosity, which is on the radius of the forearm, just crossing the elbow joint, right? So somewhere here, in the lateral part, the radius, just where it crosses the elbow joint. So basically, both the long head and the short head, they are kind of very superficial muscles. Superficial का मतलब बिल्कुल ऊपर होते हैं, which is very much visible, जिसको हम डोला बोलते हैं, the bicep. So biceps is basically both the heads getting merged and making a big muscle belly, and we try to hypertroph it when we do curls for the girls, as we say, So basically, I would very much, you guys will agree, nobody in your gyms would know how to train the long head and the short head differently. Even if you want to show your biceps, usually what the emoji shows, in a chat, we show it like this. So this is what is showing. This part is the short head. The long head is this part. So basically the long head gives the height to the biceps, the peak. When we say it fucking snows on my bicep peaks, so we basically mean it snows on my long head of the bicep peak. The long head of the bicep, not on the short head. It doesn't snow on the short head. Short heads are like Shivalik mountains and long head is like the fucking Himalayas, right? So the long head again basically gives you the peak. So when you do a rear bicep, this is all the long head which is visible. And when you do it from here, as you can see in the picture of mine, when I was ripped and strong and young and boisterous and you know what I mean? So that was when you have got very less fat and your biceps, both the heads are hypertrophed. The short head and the long head, as you can see in the picture, it is very much visible. The long head is giving it the peak, the height, which is crossing the shoulder. So we always say in bodybuilding, आपका जो bicep का जो peak है, it should be over the shoulder. इसी करके हम bicep को ऐसे pose नहीं करते. I always advise my clients and my fellow bodybuilders to pose it like this, so that shoulder नीचे होना चाहिए and the bicep should be on top of it. The level of इसकी पहाड़ी छोटी होनी चाहिए, उसकी पहाड़ी ऊपर होनी चाहिए. The highest peak should be the longer head of the bicep. Just the way Sir Arnold Schwarzenegger, the god, used to pose. He used to pose it like this because, and same is Sergey Olivier and all the old school. No disrespect to the current generation, they are also very good, but just, I'm an old school bodybuilder. So I had to, quote them. So this is how you pose, the long head and the short head. And the short head of the bicep is very much visible when you are standing like this. It gives you the width of the arm. Of course, the width is also given by the brachialis, which we are going to talk very soon. But amongst these two heads of the biceps, the shorter head gives the width to the biceps. And of course, when you do it like this, so this is giving you the width also and the kind of a density also. The short head is just equally important to give you that beautiful bicep, the cherry on the fucking cake. So basically, just to let you guys know again, we are not talking about just the biceps in this video. I am talking about the elbow flexion. And these three muscles, three of them are elbow flexion. So whenever we do a curl, any sort of curl, I am saying 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 any sort of curl. So whenever the elbow is getting in a flexion position, the brachialis, the biceps brachii and the brachioradialis, all of these three muscles are incorporating and they are making the flexion getting happen. So now we are going to talk about the brachialis. Now the brachialis is kind of a very deep, now this was a very superficial muscle as I told you. This is a very deep tissue. So it is not something which is superficial, it is not something you can really touch with your palm or with your fingers. So this brachialis originates around 2/3 down the length of the humerus, somewhere from here, and it gets inserted in the ulnar tuberosity, which is somewhere here, just crossing the elbow joint. So brachialis basically it contributes to the width of the arm. It actually gives the width, looking from the front, it gives you the width. Also it gives a kind of a height to the biceps also. You can just imagine a kind of a volcano happening. So if you hypertrophy your brachialis, it kind of pushes the two heads more onto the top and it gives the height of the biceps as well. Not exactly, but it kind of pushes the biceps, the heads from the beneath. So it gives the width and kind of accentuates that, the look on the biceps brachii. So brachialis being a deep muscle, it is not kind of visible, but definitely it is contributing a lot to the whole look of your biceps. So basically the brachialis, it kind of gets activated when we are doing something with a hammer position. So when we are doing any kind of a elbow flexion in a hammer position, this is getting predominantly activated. But this is not the entire truth, but this is some part of the truth for sure. So biceps brachii not only does the flexion, which we all know it does the flexion, it also does one more very important thing, which is the supination. It supinates your palm, whether you are in from pronation to supination, or from hammer to supination, or semi-hammer to supination. So supination is a very, very important contribution of biceps brachii. So whenever you do a supination, you can just well imagine that your biceps brachii, which is the biceps, which is the dada, it is getting activated. So two movements to the biceps brachii, one is the elbow flexion and one is the supination. So when we supinate our arm, not so much when you are in a neutral position, but when you are at 90 degrees, your forearm and your humerus is at 90 degrees, then when you do a supination, this is all your biceps brachii doing the needful. That is why I always say to a lot of my clients and my fellow bodybuilders, whosoever is listening, you can kind of relate to it, of course. So whenever you do a bicep curl, I always say you need to, when you are at almost near the 90 degrees, you need to supinate, rotate your wrist, kind of. And your little finger, your pinky, should always be above your thumb. So your end part should be like this. A kind of going even more than supination. So when you go even more than supination, your longer head also gets activated. When you go normal supination, it is only till your short head. But if you go even beyond your supination point, which is like this is the longer head also getting affected. But that is only when you are at the 90 degrees or near the 90 degrees, not here. Nothing is happening here. But when you are here, you kind of start supinating your palm, and that ways you can have your better short head also and longer head also. Also, it's a very interesting thing. I always make So back in the days when the dumbbells were not like kind of fixed, we used to have plates. What we used to do is we used to put more weight here in the medial part of the the dumbbell and lesser weight there, maybe a 2 kgs or a 1 kg plate here. So when we used to do a kind of a supination, it used to be an active supination, and we used to actually need to kind of rotate the forearm because the weight is more here, less there. So you need to make an effort to supinate the arm, which makes so much sense. So even if the dumbbells like right now we don't have the very less gyms we have the dumbbells which can be manipulated. So even if you are doing it with a fixed dumbbell, I would suggest you to grab the dumbbell from the thumb side. Your thumb side should be kind of here, and there should be a gap here. So your pinky should be somewhere in between the bar between the dumbbell. So now again you will be having to do a very forced supination, which will activate your biceps like fucking hell. So if you can manage a 17.5 or a 20 kg dumbbell, you won't be able to manage 10 kgs, bro. I'm telling you. But boy oh boy, the kind of a pump you're gonna have for the biceps, the hypertrophy, that's gonna be crazy. So when you do a nice bicep curl, supinating and even going further away from a supination, you might not be able to kind of push a lot of weight. You might not be able to do 20 kg dumbbell, right? The gym bro doing besides you, and you might just be able to settle with 10 kgs or 12 kgs and not attract a lot of females in your gym. The gym bro is gonna get a lot of female adulation from there. But boy oh boy, when you're gonna sit on that fucking Thar and pose your biceps and the long head and the short head, you're gonna get a lot of girls drooled over. Telling you that much. So when I say your brachialis is most activated in a hammer position, but don't be mistaken, brachialis is one muscle which is going to be always gonna be activated no matter what position of your palm is. Whenever you do a flexion, the brachialis is always going to be activated. There is no way it doesn't contribute to the flexion of the elbow. So it is just basically the biceps brachii and the brachioradialis, which we gonna be, something is gonna take more brunt, something for lesser. But this brother of yours is always gonna be activated. So now we are gonna talk about the third flexor, which is brachioradialis. Now brachioradialis is the most superficial amongst the three flexors. It is right up there. If you kind of do a hammer grip and kind of press your, press your fist against your palm, this thing which is a very superficial muscle, this is what a brachioradialis is. Now brachioradialis, it originates on the distal portion of the humerus. Distal का मतलब दूर, ये ह्यूमरस है तो दूर वाला मतलब जहाँ पर almost elbow joint के पास से शुरू होता है, and it gets inserted in the distal portion of the radius. तो जहाँ पर almost wrist शुरू होती है, तो यहाँ से शुरू होता है और यहाँ पर खत्म होता है. Something like this, as you can see. So this one is gonna be more activated when we do anything in the prone position. जब हम reverse grips लगाते हैं, that is the time the brachioradialis is most activated. So I just want to clarify one thing. Whenever we do a supinated curl, that is the time, of course, as I told you, brachialis is gonna be activated in all the times, no matter what. But when we do a hammer position, we rotate our forearm like this, and the biceps brachii, the insertion of brachii, it gets kind of in a disadvantageous position. So now the brachialis is gonna be in a more advantageous position. So the more brunt is gonna be taken by the brachialis and lesser on the biceps brachii, जिसको हम डोला बोलते हैं. So it is not that it is switched off and that is switched on. It will never gonna happen. It is only, it stayed on, but the brunt got kind of distributed more on the brachialis, and now in a hammer position, the brachialis is taking more brunt and the biceps brachii is taking the less brunt. I hope it makes sense, right? So I'm gonna explain you how all these three flexors are gonna take more brunt or lesser or even lesser brunt on different ways of doing a elbow flexion, whether it is supinated, neutral, pronated, whether your elbow is here or it is, or your shoulder is kind of here, or the velocity of your rep, अगर आप तेज कर रहे हो कि slow कर रहे हो कि concentric तेज कर रहे हो, eccentric slow कर रहे हो, how these, all of these variables are gonna influence these three muscle flexors of the elbow. So remember, in a supination, जब हम barbell curl कर रहे हैं या dumbbell curl कर रहे हैं, जब हम curl कर रहे हैं, all the three flexors are activated. Everything kicks in. But when we are at a 55 degrees or so, they say, like this is 90 degrees, right? This is neutral and this is kind of 55. जब हम इतना आते हैं, that is the time all the three muscle flexors, elbow flexors are at the strongest. And more you curl up, आप इसको curl up कर रहे हो, concentric कर रहे हो, the more you curl up, the more muscle is getting contracted, and once you go beyond 90, let's say about 110 degrees, that is the time the brachioradialis kicks in even more. Not kicks in, it stayed on. It is just that now it is going to take more of the load, more of the brunt. So if you want to kind of activate your brachialis even more, you would want to take it to the most contracted position beyond 110 degrees. So at 110 degrees, this is activated quite a lot. Now, if we are not in a supination, but we are in the opposite, pronation, as we said, in pronation, the brachioradialis is going to take more of a brunt. So as we discussed, when we are doing the curl in a pronated grip, that is when the brachioradialis is at the most advantageous position and the strongest. So the most of the brunt is being taken by the brachioradialis, just because, as I explained, the biceps brachii, which is the dora, is now at a very disadvantageous position. It is not on, it is still on, but it is kind of taking less brunt. The brachioradialis is taking more brunt. But once you go past 90 degrees and reach somewhere here 100, 110 degrees, that is when no matter what, biceps brachii, again, which is the dora, biceps, is gonna take the brunt. So that is when no matter what, even if it is a pronated grip, your biceps are gonna do a lot of work and it is gonna be super activated at 110 degrees and past at the most contracted position, even if it is a pronated grip. Now, you would want to know, you would want to take a wild guess in which position of your palm all the three flexors are in the most strongest position. Well, it is not in the supinated, it is not in the pronated, it is actually in the hammer position or a semi-hammer position, let's say a easy rod. So when we do a easy rod curl, that is when all the three flexors, your brachialis, biceps brachii and the radialis, all of these three will be most activated and the strongest when you are doing a hammer position or a semi-hammer position, which is an easy rod curl or a W curl, whatever you want to say. So this is when you are the strongest and you would be able to move a lot of weight. Now another very interesting point, whenever we do any sort of when we are in the eccentric position, so eccentric matlab negative position, negative part of the curl, इसको हम positive कहते हैं, इसको हम negative कहते हैं, इसको वापस लेके आने वाला, ये ले जाने वाला and ये लेके आने वाला weight को वापस. So when we do an eccentric curl, your biceps brachii is doing the most, it is at the most activated position amongst all the three flexors behind me. So to activate your biceps more and to take the most out of, the fun out of the elbow flexion, you need to make sure that again you are bringing the weight slow. That will activate your biceps the most. And again, to do eccentric, slow eccentric, you might want to, kind of cut down on the poundage, but I would still say it is worth having 2 or 3 girls in the gym not look at you. But of course, when you're gonna again sit on that fucking Thar and flex your biceps, you're gonna thank me. Also, last but not the least, whenever you do any kind of a curl very fast, the concentric, everything kicks in. The radialis, the brachii and the brachialis, everything kicks in. But when you do a slow eccentric, it is only the brachii doing the needful, taking the most of the brunt. So if you want to make sure that your biceps is doing the maximum effort and you want to grow your hypertrophy your biceps, you need to do a concentric fast, eccentric slow. Concentric fast, eccentric slow. Also, apart from the elbow joint, as we discussed that the biceps brachii crosses your shoulder also. So when you do a shoulder flexion, the initial part of the shoulder flexion is also get contributed by the biceps brachii. So that is only till 55 degrees. After the 55 degrees, then of course the anterior delt and the pec major, they come into play. But just the initial position, the initial movement 55 degrees from here till let's say about here, it is also biceps brachii contributing to that flexion of the shoulder. So whenever you see any of those old school bodybuilders, let's say the name of Branch Warren, because I have so much love and respect for that guy. So whenever you see them curling like this, I see a lot of YouTubers and the gym bro, Instagrammers, जिनको अभी 6 महीने हुए हैं जिम जाते हुए. Due respect, bro. I don't want to kind of disrespect anybody. But you are not to say that he is doing it in a wrong way. He is pushing a lot of fucking weight and he's doing it very fast. So when he's flexing his elbow a little bit, it is still fucking good because it is still the biceps brachii doing the fucking thing. He is activating the proximal part of the biceps and he takes it all the way up in an arc position, and when he brings it down, he goes in a slow eccentric. So he is doing fucking everything it needs to be done to activate the biceps. And there is a reason they look like the way they do, because they are absolutely amazing people. And in the words of great Dorian Yates, I guess, you don't teach your daddy how to fuck. So we are not supposed to teach those, those gauze, muscle gauze, anything. They are there for a reason. So I'm gonna be dropping a lot of bicep broms on the Tank Varsity channel. और मैं एक exercise आपको करके दिखाऊंगा on the floor, so you will be able to relate to them more. And I'll be explaining you now why anatomically those are better movements to be done rather than a lot of other ones. So all of what we are gonna be doing in this channel is not my opinion based. I'm gonna scientifically and anatomically factually explain you क्यों ये movements अच्छी हैं, and you can target your any sort of muscle in a better way. So watch out for the upcoming bicep videos. They're gonna be amazing. I'm telling you that much. So do subscribe to the channel, guys, and do let me know, guys, in the comment section what videos you want me to make. I will be happiest to do so. Keep watching me, keep watching the Tank Varsity, keep hitting in the gym, and lots of love. This is the Tank signing off. Bye-bye.